Chapter 11. It was a beautiful sunny day. The street was full of kid noises. Laughter drowned the sounds of marching feet, when suddenly the world fell to pieces. One scream killed the laughter. It was Jackie's. I turned around in time to catch her in my arms as she hurled herself at me. Her face was a white mask of horror. "Finn! Oh, God, Finn, it's Anna. She's dead, she's dead." Her scarlet fingernails dug into my chest, and the ice-cold water of fear flooded over me. I ran down the street. Anna was lying across the railings, her fingers clinging to the top of a wall. I lifted her off and cradled her in my arms. A flicker of pain narrowed her eyes. "I slipped out of the tree," she murmured. "All right, Titch, hold on, I've got you." Suddenly, I felt terribly sick. Out of the corner of my eye, I had seen something that in a curiously distorted way was even more terrifying than this injured child in my arms. A fall had broken off the top part of one of the railings, a broken iron stump. A few years ago nobody could see that. Now it was clear for all to see. This iron stump, these crystal mountains, were now red with the shame and horror at its part in this dreadful thing. I carried Anna home and put her to bed. The doctor came and dressed her wounds and left her with me. I held her hands and searched her face. The pain flickered across her eyes, but was chased away by the grin that slowly blossomed over her face. The grin won. The pain was hidden somewhere inside her. Thank God she was going to be all right. Oh, thank God. "Finn, is the princess all right?" Anna whispered. "She's fine," I answered. I didn't know if she was all right or not. "She was stuck up in the tree and couldn't get down. I slipped," said Anna. "She's all right." She was very frightened. She's only a baby kitten. "She's fine. She's all right. Now listen, you rest. I'll stay with you. Don't be frightened," I said. "Ain't frightened, Finn. I ain't frightened." "Go to sleep, Titch. Have a little sleep. I've got you." Her eyes closed, and she slept. It was going to be all right. I knew it deep down inside. For 2 days, this feeling that it was going to be all right grew and took over my fears. Her grin and her excited conversations about Mr. God made me doubly sure. The knots inside me were coming undone. I was looking out of the window when she called me. "Finn? Here, Titch, what do you want?" I crossed over to her. "Finn, it is like turning inside out." There was a look of amazement on her face. An ice-cold hand gripped my heart and squeezed hard. I remember Granny Harding. "Titch!" My voice was too loud. Titch looked at me. Her eyes flickered and her smiles spread. I hurried to the window and flung it open. Corey was there. "Get the doctor, quickly," I said. She nodded, turned on her heels and ran. Suddenly, I knew what was going to happen. I went back to Anna. It wasn't time for crying. It was never time for crying. The cold dread in my heart had frozen the tears within me. I held Anna's hand. My head pounded with the idea that, "Whatever you shall ask in my name," I asked, I pleaded. "Finn," she whispered, and the smile lit up her face. "Finn, I love you." "I love you too, Titch." "Finn, I bet Mr. God lets me get into heaven for this." "You betcha. I bet he's been waiting for you." I wanted to say more, a whole lot more, but she wasn't listening any more, just smiling. The days burnt up like giant candles, and time melted, ran and congealed into useless and hideous lumps. 2 days after the funeral, I found Anna's speed pouch. It gave me something to do. I went to the cemetery and stayed for a little while. It just made things worse, that much more empty. If only I had been nearer at the time. If only I had known what she was doing. If only. I tipped the seeds on the fresh-turned earth and hurled the pouch from me in misery. I wanted to hate God, wanted him out of my system, but he wouldn't let go. I found God more real, more strangely real than ever before. Hatred wouldn't come, but I despised him. God was an idiot, a moron. He could have saved Anna, but he didn't. He just let this most stupid of all things happen. This child, this beautiful child, had been cut off and not yet 8 years old. Just when she was... hell. The war years took me out of the East End. The war dragged its bloody boots over the face of the world until the madness was over. Thousands of other children died. Thousands more were maimed and left homeless. The madness of the war became the madness of victory. Victory? I got good and drunk on VJ night. It was a good way out. I had been given a bundle of books some time previously, but I hadn't even bothered to undo them. There didn't seem to be much point. It was one of those idle moments. I didn't know what else to do with myself. Those years had made my eyes tired with looking, and my ears ached with listening. Some sign, some vision, just for a moment. I picked up the books. They didn't seem very interesting. Nothing seemed very interesting. I flipped through the pages. It wasn't until my eyes fell upon the name of Coleridge that I stopped the pages of the book slipping through my fingers. For me, Coleridge is at the top of the heap. I began to read. I adopt with full faith the theory of Aristotle that poetry as poetry is essentially ideal, that it avoids and excludes all accidents. That is, I turned back a few pages and began to read again. Out of the pages of that book, old Woody appeared. The process by which the poetic imagination works is illustrated by Coleridge in the following lines of Sir John Davis. Thus doth she, when from individual states she doth abstract the universal kinds, which then reclothe in divers names and fates, steal across through our senses to our minds. The smoky fires of the night-time people came drifting through my imagination. Old Woody, Convict Bill, Old Lil, Anna, and me. A few lines further on, and my eyes caught the word violence. The young poet says Goethe must do some sort of violence to himself to get out of the mere general idea. No doubt this is difficult, but it is the very art of living. It slowly began to make sense. The bits began to fall into place. Something was happening, and it made me cry. For the first time in a long, long time, I cried. I went out into the night, and I stayed out. The clouds seemed to be rolling back. It kept nagging at the back of my mind. Anna's life hadn't been cut short. Far from it. It had been full, completely fulfilled. The next day, I headed back to the cemetery. It took me a long time to find Anna's grave. It was tucked away at the back of the cemetery. I knew that it had no headstone, just a simple wooden cross with the name on it, Anna. I found it after about an hour. I had gone there with this feeling of peace inside me, as if the book had been closed, as if the story had been one of triumph. But I hadn't expected this. I stopped and gasped. This was it. The little cross leaned drunkenly, its paint peeling off, and there was the name Anna. I wanted to laugh, but you don't laugh in cemeteries, do you? Not only did I want to laugh, I had to laugh. It wouldn't stay bottled up. I laughed till the tears ran down my face, but I pulled up the little cross and threw it out into the thicket. "Okay, Mr. God," I laughed. "I'm convinced. Good old Mr. God. You might be a bit slow at times, but you certainly make it all right in the end." Anna's grave was a brilliant red carpet of poppies. Lupins stood guard in the background. A couple of trees whispered to each other, whilst a family of little mice scurried backwards and forwards through the uncut grass. Anna was truly home. She didn't need a marker. You couldn't better this with a squillion tons of marble. I stayed for a little while and said goodbye to her for the first time in 5 years. As I made my way back to the main gates, I passed by hordes of little marble cherubs, angels, and pearly gates. I stopped in front of the 12-foot-high angel, still trying to lay down its bunch of marble flowers after God knows how many years. "Hi, chum," I said, saluting the angel. "You'll never make it, you know." I swung on the iron gates as I yelled back into the cemetery. "The answer is in my middle." A finger of thrill went down my spine, and I thought I heard her voice saying, "What's that the answer to, Finn?" "That's easy. The question is, where's Anna?" I had found her again. Found her in my middle. I felt sure that somewhere Anna and Mr. God were laughing.